All right, so I'm outside, everybody, so you might hear a wind sound because I've got the kids running around inside, and we're having the basement finished, and normally we would have them playing down there, but there's just equipment and everything. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Not like you guys need to know this stuff. Okay, let me adjust my chair, and maybe move like this and sit back and see if I'm visible. Okay, but see, now it looks like my hair's sticking up, but that's a light behind me. That's not my hair sticking up. But that's going to drive me insane, so I'm going to, let's see, which way do I want to move? No, I think I want to move this way. All right, everybody. Okay. Here we go. All right, so let's start answering questions. Yeah, tornado. Yeah, I know. There's always crazy weather around here. Seriously. I thought I heard Alex Jones say you were coming on his show. Was that recently? Can you jump back into the chat and answer, was that recently? Because I haven't gotten a... okay, well, they haven't... I would come on, but they haven't written to me. Okay. Massachusetts Ron Paul delegates banned from convention. I've only seen the headline there. I haven't actually clicked on it. We're getting ready to head to Alabama for a month, so I just read the headline. I mean, I'm sure it's typical Republican Party, up to no good. I don't know what else to say other than that. A war-loving liberal in 140 characters. Oh my gosh, so you want to tweet? Oh gosh, a liberal who's for war? I would say, I mean, I don't know. War is like every reactionary thing in the world, right? I mean, it's regimentation and almost always indiscriminate killing, no matter what they try to pretend. It's always based on lies and nationalism and state-fostered hatreds. How could you support that? That's just, I mean, come on now. All right, let's see. What do I think about Hong Kong? I got to give me more specifics on that. Let's see. Thanks. Okay, is Edmund Burke still scheduled for tonight? Missed you at Pork Fest. I know Murphy is telling me I've got to go to Pork Fest, and I'm telling him he's got to start his Anti-Krugman YouTube channel. We'll see which one of those things happens first. Okay, humanitarian actions. Yeah, I don't know enough about what's going on. Did I ever meet Joe Sobran? Yeah, I did, really, really briefly, in situations that he wouldn't recall. But then I did have a pretty decent email correspondence with him here and there over the years, starting around 2002, maybe around 2002 to 2004. We were semi-regular email correspondence, and then I sort of lost touch with him. But I love Joe Sobran. I think he's a genius. I think he's a writer that I envy, or I was jealous of his writing ability. He had such a beautiful, beautiful way with words. He was such a wordsmith. And when he died, I was at an investment conference. I was at a big VIP dinner, and I was sitting at a table full of people who had no idea who he was. And I was very depressed about that, because I was sitting there, and it was hitting me really that he had died in obscurity after being a courageous person. He had been shut out by the neocons, and he died in total obscurity, and I was totally depressed for that whole dinner. Okay, let me go back up and let's see. Do I have an exact date and time for the launch of your radio show? I think it's going to start off in more of a podcast format, and then we'll build up the audience and go from there. I don't have an exact date, but I'll tell you it'll be in August, and I will announce the specifics of it right here at Liberty Chat when I know them. But the deal is that we are heading out to Alabama on July 1st, and we're going to be in Alabama until July 31st, because I'm going to spend that month at the Mises Institute. And then August 1st, I turn 40. 40! So, you know, go ahead and, while I'm in Alabama, you guys go ahead and plan the libertychat.com surprise party for me. Go ahead and plan that. And I'll pretend to be surprised. I won't ruin it for you. All right, let's see. How do I feel about the whole should Ron Paul supporters vote for Mitt Romney thing? Are there Ron Paul supporters, like hardcore ones, who are seriously discussing this? I've not heard about this. No, of course they shouldn't vote for Mitt Romney. At this point, it should be obvious that the whole system is not reformable, or not, let's just say, I mean, Romney versus Obama is not meaningful, is what I mean to say. And there's just no way you can endorse. I mean, what does Romney agree with you on? I mean, he says he agrees with you on all kinds of things, right? He wants federalism. He never talks about it, but he says he does. He wants lower taxes, but you know that under him probably it would be a wash. And probably under Obama they're going to renew the Bush tax cuts anyway, so that's going to be a wash regardless of who's president. He's pledged to close some loopholes. That means he's going to raise taxes. He'd probably be marginally more bellicose on foreign policy, which is a bad thing. He's going to be just bad on the Federal Reserve. I mean, what's the point? I mean, for civil liberties, he's the same. So what's the point? I mean, any area where he would be a marginal improvement is offset by areas where he'd be marginally worse. Okay, let's go on here. Am I a fan of Adam Kokesh? Adam and I have been friendly over the years. I haven't given him any problems. He hasn't given me any problems. I don't always agree with him, and I don't always agree with his style, but maybe he doesn't like my style. Okay, for or against intellectual property. Man, are you people going to give me a rest on this intellectual property thing? I keep saying that I am mulling this over, and I'm leaning sort of anti, but for something as momentous as that, I feel like I've got to be super duper informed on it, and I'm just not, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure when I'm going to be. I've just have so many things I want to do. Now that I've finally moved into my office and I've got all the planning on, I have new course material I want to prepare for my Liberty Classroom website. So I don't know when I'm going to have time to really have leisure time to sit and think. For the days when I could just sit and think about something. But I'm leaning against. I'll just say that because I think the Seth and Kinsella arguments are really, really good. Okay, how do I reconcile the founders like Jefferson and have slaves? Well, I don't think you have to reconcile it. I mean, you just say, any more than you have to reconcile, Aristotle and some of the views that he held. I mean, you just say, I like this part and I don't like that part. There are a lot of. I don't think you're not obligated to do anything like that. I mean, you don't have to make these people consistent. You just have to learn from anybody you can learn from. That's my attitude. I used to be of the opinion that it was my responsibility to cast all the founding fathers in the best possible light. But it's not. It's not. They are who they are, and you get from them what you can get. All right. Okay, I was getting you're getting a whopping 0.6% interest in your savings account. Pontificate? No, I can't. I'm too frustrated about that situation. Okay, what do I think about the economic system in Hong Kong? I don't know enough of the details of it today, but I do know that by the early 1980s, it had already become an export powerhouse, basically through having a very open economy, allowing foreign investment, having international trade, having relatively low taxes. And as far as I know, that's more or less the policy they've still got now. I mean, I could be wrong about that. They may have some of the industrial policy that some of the other Pacific countries have. I don't know. I don't know enough about the specifics of Hong Kong. Let's see. Thoughts on Obama's state of emergency. Give me more details. Again, I'm a historian, so I don't always keep up with current events. I keep up with the past, and I am always on top of that. Thoughts on the GMO labeling vote in the Senate? Well, my understanding of the vote was that, if I'm wrong on this, correct me, and when I finally do scroll down to the most recent ones, I'll see it. But my understanding was that it was a vote on whether the states would be allowed to force the labeling. And so I think in that case, from a federalist point of view, not libertarian theory, but from a federalist constitutionalist point of view, you would have to permit the states to make that decision. And in effect, it's not even that you're permitting, even I fall into the wrong sort of terminology. It's not a question of permitting. The states already have the residual powers. It's a question of the federal government not intervening. So strictly speaking, this would be a state question. So from a constitutional standpoint, I think the vote would have to be, if I'm understanding it right, the vote would have to be, no, I don't want to say that the states can't do this. That would have to be the vote. Okay. Okay, let's see. Nullification documentary was awesome. That's great. I can't take any credit for that nullification documentary other than a book called Nullification. That was entirely the work of Jason Rook and I guess also Michael Holden. But my wife and I recently watched it in our house, and I was very pleased with it. And at Freedom Fest next month, they're going to be screening it, and I'm going to be sitting on a panel commenting on it. But I'm glad you liked it. I just got they did a beautiful promo poster for it, and I got one for myself, and I just had it framed. I'm going to hang it in my office. Gosh, things custom framed it just costs a fortune, doesn't it? I had no idea. My wife always takes care of things like this for me. Okay, let's see. Taxation equals force and coercion and is immoral. Agree? Yes. I like short answers when we have a lot of questions. What is your take on the Supreme Court decision on the Arizona immigration case? Well, again, from a constitutional standpoint, I think actually I was very surprised at what Scalia said. I almost felt like I was reading a hoax. But Scalia basically took the view that the states more or less that it's not really clear where the federal government is getting the power over immigration to start with. Because the Constitution talks about naturalization and that being a federal responsibility, but that's a different thing from immigration. And so in my brief glance at Scalia's statement, I was shocked. Basically, he's arguing the states ought to be setting immigration policy, which is a very, very interesting position. And my view is that the lowest level possible that can be making these decisions, the closer we are to the ideal system. Okay, what are some good resources for a Protestant interested in Catholicism? Well, just to get a basic overview of what Catholics believe, I would read Carl Keating's book, Catholicism and Fundamentalism. And for a little bit of Catholic history, you might read my book on. In fact, can I just double check and see if the free chapter website is still up there? Just 1 second. Let's see if they renewed that account or not. Because if not, I'll have to get on their case. Yeah, they did not. But I've got a paperback edition coming out later this year. But yeah, you go to my website, tomwoods.com/ and go to tomwoods.com/books, and my book on the church and Western civilization might be of some use. I've had plenty of Protestants tell me that they enjoyed reading that book. Okay, really shocked me. What are your thoughts on the matter? All right, I must have missed your first statement. What really shocked you? Okay, let's see it. I'm sorry. The scrolling is very, very sensitive, so I didn't get Brandon Ellis's thing, what shocked him. Okay, what do I think of Chris Hedges? Sort of the same thing that I feel about other leftists who are at least honest and principled enough to take aim at people that would be perceived as being on their side. I think that's really, really great that he's good on the NDAA and courageous and good on war. And that's more than I can say for Hillary Clinton. It's more than I can say for people who are supposedly on my side. So I'm willing to, people who are anti-war, even though they really irritate me on a lot of other issues, I'm still willing to cut them a lot of slack. Like, I'm willing to overlook an awful lot for somebody who's anti-war. Okay, let's see. Oh, now I'm getting to the part where I mentioned that I was 40. Okay. Have I heard about this Ron Paul cruise, and am I going? Well, to be honest, it would kind of depend on who else is going to be there. Like, if I was going to go on something like that, it would have to be super duper 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 family friendly. So if it's going to be people who are going to be cursing and screaming and being foul-mouthed, then I'm not going. Like, I'm just not. If I can't fully participate with my 4 kids, then I'm not going. Okay. Oh, that's very sweet. Bilderberg. We got somebody from the Bilderberg group sitting in who's just transparently using the name Bilderberg. You'd think they'd be a little more clever than that. Okay. All right. So I'm scrolling down. Now I'm at like 840. Let's see. Okay. Chris Lawless at PorchFest said that we got Murphy because they couldn't afford you. No, that's a terrible insult. Of course, Lawless is just getting back at Murphy for the roast, I'm sure. No, I said that unfortunately. A week long, there's just no way, no matter how much fun something is, there's no way that I can do an uncompensated week away from my family. And people say, oh, but you could bring the whole family. My kids I don't want to travel across the country with 4 kids. So it's not that I would want to milk Pork Fest, whatever. I would rather not be at Pork Fest than actually charge them, because it seems to violate the whole spirit of the thing. So I said to them, look, this is what I would have to get, because I have to keep the lights on around here, and if I'm going to be a good father, I can only be away from the house a few days a month. And so, unfortunately, that's just the way it is for me right now while I have 4 kids. So that's just not, unfortunately, just not in the picture. If I still live as a friend who's deeply involved in Pork Fest, an old college friend or something, who basically prevailed upon him last year, you got to go to this thing, and finally Murphy gave in. And now this year he went because he remembered that last year he was so glad he was talking to it. It was because it was so great. So anyway, that's that. Okay. Have I been invited to speak at Paul Fest? Yeah, I have. I'm listed in the press releases and stuff. I am listed there. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I love when you use big words. Okay, but it's been so long since I was talking, and for this comment, I have no idea what word that was. What's the status of the Meltdown documentary? Okay, well, we just did our last interview for that, and I really, again, I can't take much credit for this. I mean, I've supervised the script, and I've done some voiceover recordings. This is really the work of a great young guy in Iowa named Jimmy Morrison, who is just. I cannot say enough good about this kid. Let me check. You would think I would know these things off the top of my head, but my head is so filled with logistical issues about moving for the summer that important things are being pushed out. Okay. Okay. Just 1 second, guys. I just want to see what the URL for this thing is. Darn it! Let me see. Is that? That's it. Okay. All right. I'm going to give you guys the URL for this. Now, probably somebody's already beaten me to this because it took me about 50 years. Okay. And bang. So that's the URL for the film. It's called The Bubble. It's based on Meltdown. If anybody doesn't know, I had a Meltdown a few years ago. It was a very successful book, big seller, New York Times list and all that. Ron Paul wrote the foreword. And so we're doing this documentary. So what we're going to do is we're going to, we've got a trailer that we're going to show at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. So I'm going to be moderating a panel where we're going to have that trailer, and we're going to feature people who are in the documentary. So we're going to have Bob Murphy, Peter Schiff, Doug Casey, and Gene Epstein, the great guy from Barron's, the premier financial publication. Epstein and I debated whether the Fed should be, he and I were on the End the Fed side of a debate on the Fed at Freedom Fest several years ago. So that's going to be an absolutely fantastic panel. That's on Friday of Freedom Fest. So that project is plugging along, and we expect it to be done by the end of this year. Okay. Would church discipline be better than so many laws? Maybe that's a reference to something I said earlier. I don't totally know what you mean. Do you mean maybe, in other words, if you had... that some people are trying to use civil government to bring about ends that if only they were living up to their own religious beliefs, they wouldn't need civil government to do this in the first place. If that's what you mean, then yes, I agree. I think one of the maxims I quote from one of the ancient authors at the beginning of my book, Rollback, was something like the more corrupt the society, the greater the number of laws. And I think there's something to that. Incidentally, if you Rollback, which is my book about why everything should be abolished, I always talk about how badly packaged that book was, and they packaged it to sound like a boring book against Obama. It's just horrible. The email the Conservative Book Club sent out about that book had nothing to do with the book at all. It was like, here's a book about why the Balanced Budget Amendment isn't going to work. Who would want to read a book like that? Like, this is my most radical book ever, and they turned it into a snooze fest. So unfortunately, it has moved very slowly, even though it's far superior to books of mine that have moved very quickly. Well, I think there's a paperback coming out, so Amazon is rushing to get rid of their hardbacks. So if you go to Amazon now and you type in Rollback, is wrong. I want to get you to the unbelievable deal you are not going to believe. No, that's not a good enough deal. I'm going to get you to the unbelievable deal. And let's see, right there. Okay, basically they're selling the book now for brand new for basically just a few dollars, so they can get rid of their inventory in time for the paperback. Look at this link. Go on that link. So if you have Amazon Prime, this is unbelievable. Like you can order like 8 copies and then make a living reselling them. So they're selling it for like a few dollars, which is always what happens when they've got leftover hardcovers and the paperback is coming. So scoop that up. Okay, it's like the best thing I ever did. Scoop that thing up. All right, let's see. 8:40. Oh my gosh, I'm so far behind, everybody. I'm so sorry about this. Okay. All right. All right. I already answered the Hong Kong thing. All right. Well, how do you argue a case for an originalist stance on the Constitution when people bring up the 14th Amendment changing the scope? Well, you just talk about the original intent of the 14th Amendment, and there the key author is relatively recently deceased Harvard professor named Raoul Berger, and he has a book called Government by Judiciary. It's a very long book about the 14th Amendment, which argues that it was not intended to bring about a revolution in the, you can see my kids in the window, in the Constitution. If you don't want to read a gigantic book, you can get the gist of his argument in a much lesser known, shorter book that he did called The 14th Amendment and the Bill of Rights. So I would start there and go from there. And you could also look at the 14th Amendment chapter in Kevin Gutzman's book, The Politically Incorrect Guide to the Constitution. Okay. Reinhold Niebuhr. I wrote a book review. Gosh, somebody's got to remind me to pull this up. I wrote a book review about a book that dealt in part with Niebuhr, and I just thought, I thought he was totally overrated, basically, was my view. But I'd rather link you to the review of this book. And gosh, I'm glad actually this came up, because I totally forgot about that review. And I'm trying to put together some of my writings, and I would have totally forgotten about that. Send me a contact, please, at my site, tomwoods.com. Click contact, and please ask me about Niebuhr there, because I'd like to dig up that review, and I'll post it actually on my site. Okay. What about the 16th Amendment not even being ratified? Yeah, now I've heard that one. I'm not sure I follow the argument. I do believe that the 14th Amendment was certainly not legitimately ratified. I mean, even in the 1950s, can you imagine this? Even U.S. News and World Report ran an article saying the 14th Amendment had never been legally ratified. But then, of course, they went on to say that, well, now it's there, and so you got to live with it. Okay. Did I ever meet F.A. Hayek? Oh no, good heavens, no. He died in, I think he died in the early 90s, and I was only like a college kid at that point. Okay. Yeah, I know, new material coming to Liberty Classroom. I know, it's going to take all this time to get through what's there now. I know it will. You'll have to stay a member for a long time. We have a Constitution course coming up, and at first I thought, Constitution, I'm so bored with that thing, come on. But I looked at the topics for this thing. This is going to blow. I mean, it's so awesome, but I can't tell you about it right now. Okay. All right, let's keep on going. What would it take for me to give up on political action? Well, I pretty much have. Pretty much have. Yeah, I mean, I always thought that voting for Ron Paul was like the same as the argument for voting, period. And then when there is no Ron Paul, then it becomes a little harder to make the case. But I do think on the local level, I do think that a local person can, in fact, make some changes. I mean, you can vote down some taxes. You can lead the charge against bond issues in your community. Those are political things, and those can actually have a direct improvement on your standard of living. And also, if we're not in that arena, I think it's a problem for us because, as I keep saying, that's where most people get their political views, is in the political arena. And if we're not there, then their brains aren't going to be where we are. They're not going to ever consider that we could be an option for them. They're not even going to know that this option exists. Okay. What course we release next in Liberty Classroom will either be this, I mean, again, this Constitution thing. I know some of you think, Constitution, Smonstitution, I'm totally bored with it. Not that when you see the topics that are being covered in this thing, it would just knock your socks out. Like, you would be able to smash any bad guy, and your head would actually start getting larger because of this course. But I'm going to start preparing one on Marxism. I can't really decide. I could really use your input on what future things we should cover. Please also join my Facebook page for the site, if you wouldn't mind, even if you don't want to join. Okay. Let's see. What do I think? Okay. Okay, people keep asking me about Hong Kong. All right. People should... Okay, let's see. What do I think of the student loan debt crisis? Well, I mean, it just all depends. It partly depends on what parents want to do. If parents want to keep doing this, then it can just keep on going. But if parents are going to look seriously at their, at their real financial picture, at their real net worth, they're going to realize they just can't. They can't keep putting up this dough for their kids. They can't keep helping them get into all this debt. The kids themselves are facing pretty grim prospects. So you would think between that and the growth of alternative technologies in education that it just can't go on. But as with all bubbles, it's a question of the timing, and that you just can't know. If Gary Johnson gets 10 to 15%, is that a win for libertarianism? Well, leaving aside the issue of how libertarian is Gary Johnson, I think he's decently libertarian, but with some caveats. 10 to 15% would be absolutely miraculous for a third party. That would go down in the history books. That would be absolutely miraculous. I don't think he's going to get that. Because, Bob Barr said, look, I'm a famous congressman, so surely I'm going to get a whole bunch of votes, and it wasn't to be. So we'll see, but I strongly doubt that. But it would be a win for... it would start chipping away at the party duopoly. That I don't think there's any doubt about that. What am I reading now? Let me think. What am I reading now? Well, there was a book I mentioned the last time I was asked this question that was in my queue to read that I hadn't gotten to, and I am just about to start, which is Marxism Unmasked by Ludwig von Mises. It's a collection of his lectures on Marxism, and to me, that's fun reading. Like, I would enjoy reading that. But what else? What else have I got in mind to read? I don't know. I got to go back and look, actually. But that's the immediate one. That's the one that's on my Kindle right now. Okay. What do I think about the folks in New Hampshire practicing civil disobedience? Well, I'm not going to say that they should or they shouldn't do it. I would just say, everybody has his own way of fighting against the man, and that's not my way, but I'm not going to tell them they're wrong to do that. It's up to their own individual conscience. Did I ever consider a different major in college? Yeah, I was going to be a math major. Think of how my life would be different. But yeah, and by the way, I think it's getting dark out here because I'm outside, so I may be fading away for you guys. But yeah, I was going to be a math major, and then I just came to the conclusion when I met the other math majors at Harvard that I don't think I can stand being around these people because they, in my spare time, I wanted to read history. I felt like I needed to be well-rounded. I wanted to know some about as many areas as I could. But in their spare time, all they did was read math. All they did was read about number theory and stuff. And I just thought, ugh, if this is what it's going to take to be a Harvard math major, I don't think I want to do it. But yeah, that was my original. And then now I look back on, I kind of wish I'd done economics, but I don't know. Maybe if I did economics, I'd wish I'd done history. There's no satisfying me. I'm so much of a generalist. I'm not one of these hyper specialists that maybe I would be sort of unhappy no matter what field I was in. All right, let's scroll down again. I'm sorry for being so slow. I'm like 20 minutes behind. Ian, if you think I should just skip ahead and just go right to the most recent ones, I can stick around for like another 10 minutes and try and do the more recent ones. Let's see. Okay, let's see. In your opinion, what is the most important amendment in the Constitution? Well, maybe important is versus fateful. I mean, important would be the 10th Amendment. Jefferson was the cornerstone. But maybe in terms of significance for how it changed things, I would say maybe the 16th Amendment. But you could debate this. You could say the 17th. I can't see how you could argue the 17th is more important than the 16th. Okay, because I mean the 16th gives the federal government a direct hand in the pocket. You know, that's tricky. Okay. Oh, Ian is coming on. Hold on, let me turn my volume up so I can hear what he says.
I lost track of time. If you want to just do one more, then we'll end it.
Do you have somebody else coming up?
She's late again.
All right. Well, I'll stick around, and then if whichever comes first, the next 10 minutes or her coming on, will just stop me at that point. How's that?
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Okay. All right. Let's go back. Let's see. Do I think of slow things down a bit simply because, unfortunately, there were a lot of idiots who were lending to Greece at Germany interest rates, basically, which is a completely dumb thing to do. I'm going to be making a video this week on the euro, by the way, because I know Americans have no interest in this. I mean, genuinely, I found most Americans have no interest in this. It's too complicated. I don't understand it. But I'm going to do like a 10-minute, here's the basic stuff you need to know about, you know, like from our point of view, what's the deal with the euro? And I'm going to explain why it was destined to fail. It was set up to fail. It had to lead to an outcome like this, given the incentives that were built into it. It had to come to this. Like, I don't say the Constitution had to turn out this way, but the euro absolutely had to turn out the way that it did. And I'm going to explain that in my video. Okay, what do I think about the prospects for the Libertarian Party? Well, I think they have a chance of doing relatively better than in the past, because I think there is now a young demographic that just does not fit into either party, and that's just not going to register Republican or vote Republican. But they're not dumb enough to be Democrats either, so what are they going to be? So there is a possibility of getting these people, but again, they don't vote. The young people just simply don't vote. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is, they just don't vote. So the Libertarians have a chance to get some of those non-voting kids. That's the sort of the problem. But the deck is just so stacked against third parties that I just feel like it's such an uphill task. I would like to see them succeed. I'd like to see them do better, because they can be an avenue for getting our ideas out there, and they can be an avenue for contrasting our point of view with others. But for some reason, Americans just don't seem to be able to imagine, to think about voting outside the Democrat or Republican, two-party possibility. I don't know why that is. Okay. Do I think game theory is in any way relevant to Austrian economics? That's more Bob Murphy's area, so you should get Bob on here, because he's done some stuff on this. H.W. Benz, can you believe I have not read? I'm sorry to say. Okay, I already did the Reinhold Niebuhr thing. Who do you think we should push to pick up the Liberty torch Dr. Paul will leave behind? Well, it depends on, are you talking about a politician or not? I don't know if there is a politician who is really going to fill his shoes. But, yeah, I don't know. I answered this one last time, and I just didn't really know what to say about that. Maybe there isn't one person. Maybe it'll be a bunch of people. Yeah, I don't know. We'll just see. Okay, so now, yeah, we're seeing some repeat questions because I've already answered them. People had already asked them a second time before. Where is Freedom Fest? Oh, Freedom Fest is an annual event. It's always in Las Vegas. Oh, and I'm sorry about the wind noise in the microphone. Yeah, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be out here. You're so hot. If I could just get the mic down a bit, this wouldn't be such a bad problem next time. I'll have it fixed for next time. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Let's see. Do I read and subscribe to the philosophy of Ayn Rand? I do. I have read Ayn Rand. I like a lot of what she says, but I don't hold to her whole philosophy. But I think she's a pretty good defender of the free market. Let's see. Custom frames cost more than the object frame. Yeah, you said it. Okay. Yeah, oh, and look, I understand a lot of work. I'm not saying that I was being gouged. I was just saying I was surprised at how expensive it was. Okay. All right. Is Ron Paul speaking at the Mises Supporter Summit in October? I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. Maybe it has. I haven't checked recently. Let's see. Okay, let's see. parallel between the collapse of the Whig Party and the current state of the GOP. I'm not so sure, because the Whig Party, it partly collapsed because it was trying to be a nationwide party, but the slavery issue was dividing the party. And you had northern Whigs and southern Whigs, and you had situations where you had candidates who were running totally different campaigns in different sections of the country. And there's no way that, in the era of YouTube, that would be impossible. There's just no way that could work. I don't see that that's the GOP issue right now. I don't think that's their problem. I think the problem is they have a vanishing demographic, and I think with the immigration trends, it's just going to get worse for the Republicans. Like, California basically now is unwinnable for a Republican candidate. I think that's their problem. Have I read much Protestant literature? Well, I don't mean literature in the sense of what sense you mean literature, but I was a Lutheran for a number of years, so I've read plenty of primary literature from Protestants. Okay, what is my religion/philosophy? Well, if you go to tomwoods.com, there's a lot of stuff on that. I'm a old school Latin Mass Catholic. Agatha Christie, who was not a Catholic, of course she was Jewish, she signed a petition in 1971 to the church to retain the traditional Latin liturgy, which she believed was a great treasure of Western civilization. So I believe it's quite possible, and indeed it makes perfectly good sense for people who are not Catholics, nevertheless, to say, well, this is a source of much of what the West is in terms of its art and its music, and that was Agatha Christie's view, a great many other people's view. But in terms of philosophy, well, I just believe in there are other ways to solve your problems than violence. Just a good rule. Once you imbibe that rule, you realize that there are a lot of radical implications of that rule. That's what I'm doing here. Are any Los Angeles events planned during my trip to Vegas for Freedom Fest? No, I'm going to be at Freedom Fest for 3 solid days, so I won't be able to travel anywhere else. Okay, so I assume Ian answered the question about Liberty Fest. Yes, he did. Okay. Oh, okay. Alexander Hamilton's allegiance. I haven't heard that, I'm sorry to say. I haven't heard about any divided allegiance, although it would explain a lot, wouldn't it? Have I considered a foreign relations course for Liberty Classroom? Yes, but in the immediate run, I've got a few other ideas. I want to do this Constitution one, because take my word for it, it's awesome. I want to do this Marxism thing, and that I'll do on my own time. And I want to do one on Keynes, on an overview and then a critique of the Keynesian system. Imagine if our people were all equipped with this. It would just be killer, just be awesome. Okay. Am I an anarchist? Well, if by that word you mean a believer in private property rights, absolutely, then yes. But if you mean I don't believe that people are allowed to own land, or that that's immoral or something, no, I don't hold to that. That kind of anarchism. Is there a parallel between? Okay, I already answered that. What do I think about NAFTA? Well, pros and cons. There are some good things about it, sort of by accident. But really, when you look at the fine print, it's full of rotten stuff, and it's also full of precedents and mechanisms for the type of thing that you see unfolding in Europe right now, which is the socialists in Europe want to have a super state with the power to legislate, with the power to supervise fiscal matters, and most relevant North America, the power to upwardly harmonize regulation. That is to say, if there's a relatively low regulation country and people are flocking there, then we want to have the power to increase its regulations so that the high regulation countries don't lose population. Well, you could easily see that coming to fruition in this environment. So that means you're never going to get that. I am in favor of free exchange, but I don't like these structures because I'm sick and tired of being promised, well, this supranational, this supranational structure is just here to promote liberty. Yeah, I've heard that one again and again, right? Look at the European Union, look at the Euro, and look at what the result has been, more government. Look at the Constitution. Well, this is going to create more liberty for all the constituent parts, and look what it's done. I just don't buy it. Let's see. Am I going to write any new books? If I do, maybe, but not for a while. I'm going to start doing, we'll do a podcast, do more videos. I've got a lot of things that I really like that were in really obscure outlets, but I think people would enjoy them, and I might bring them together and call it Our Wise Overlords Are Just Here to Serve Us. Okay. Series on YouTube called Where Do Rights Come From? And I go through different rights theories. Okay. Is it really so clear that 2008 was not a subprime crisis? I don't know if you're referring to Meltdown, but in there I point out that really it was a system-wide crisis, because the non-subprime mortgages, the regular mortgages, also had a lot of failures. A lot of the problem was people flipping houses, making bad investments, but it was not just confined to subprime. There were the adjustable rate mortgages were a big problem across the board. And there are a lot of statistics on this, and I cite some of them in Meltdown. Okay. Let's see. What do I think of David Friedman? I met him once in Brazil, and I liked him personally, and I think he's a very clever guy. He's not an Austrian, but he's got some useful things to say. I think people can learn a lot from him. Okay. Do I think Obamacare will go down? Oh, a prediction. I think they're going to uphold it. And I could be wrong about this. I never promised you that I was infallible on predictions. Look at how dark it is out here, people. And I don't want to get up and turn the lights on. I'm too lazy. Okay. Peter Schiff's trip to Congress. I posted it. I posted the video. I liked it. Okay. Do you believe I should be vaccinated to protect your right to not catch disease from me? Yeah, I don't know how rights all flesh out in terms of, I don't think anybody has the right to inject you with anything. I mean, that's that. But in terms of, but it does have spillover effects on other people and all that. I don't know, I haven't really thought through that whole thing. Why does somebody keep doing this video snapshot of this chat room? I mean, this is spam, right? I mean, okay, why would it be interesting to see a video snapshot of this chat room? Okay, over and over and over again. Okay, the question about insurance companies going bankrupt. I don't know, maybe that's the intent. Maybe they want the insurance companies to go bankrupt so that they can then take them over. All right, I am so far behind that I'm going to just scroll down. And I know this is unfair to people who waited their turn, but look, it's like U.S. immigration policy. Okay, you wait your turn, and yet the illegals just go right on in. So I'm just going to go right on down. Okay. Oh no, you're going too fast. See, this is why I can't keep up with you people. This is like, you people are absolutely killing me. How am I supposed to do this? Okay, how am I supposed to do this? All right, that's it. I'm scrolling up again. All right. Why are European governments insistent upon saving the EU? Well, I mean, they feel like this is their big project. They feel like there are people whose whole lives and reputations are attached to this project. They can't think clearly. But for some of them, I mean, it's harder to explain some countries than others. It's easy for me to understand why France wants it to keep going, because from the beginning, France has been the biggest cheerleader for a massively interventionist European state. That's my daughter, Veronica, I can tell without even turning around. And so they're not going to give that up. And there are other reasons that others might want it. And again, I'm going to talk about that in my video. Okay. Sequel to Rollback. Yeah, indeed, and sort of it is. Rollback should have been called Our Wise Overlords Just Here to Serve Us, and we might have sold it. We might have actually sold this book. I'm so frustrated with Regnery over this. What do I think about Milton Friedman? I think he had a real way, I don't know, fluency, I guess, in communicating these ideas, and he converted a lot of people, and I really am impressed by that. But of course, he's not very good on some things. I mean, Rothbard is correct. He was an efficiency expert for the state in some ways, and that's not admirable. And his monetary policy, of course, was not good, and his economic method, I think, was unsound. And there were a lot of same sort of things I'd say about any Chicago person. Okay. What would I recommend reading first, Man, Economy, State, or Human Action? Definitely Man, Economy, and State without any hesitation whatsoever. And if you do read them both, you'll see what I mean. Man, Economy, and State, I think, is organized better, and it takes much, much less for granted. It does not take nearly as much knowledge for granted. It spells everything out. Whereas Mises, I think, sort of assumes you already know a lot of stuff. Rothbard does not assume that. So at the beginning, you're going to think, why is he beating a dead horse with these simple concepts? But they're actually not simple concepts. These are concepts that other schools of thought don't even hold. So, but he takes you through them step by step, and it's really, really... Anthony Sutton, I haven't read as much of him as I should, but he's done excellent work on Wall Street and Russia and Hitler and things like that, and other historians just pretend he does not exist. That is always a sign that somebody's on to. It's not always a sign, but 80% of the time it's a sign somebody's on to something. So I recommend reading him. Okay. Do I think Peter Schiff gave Rand Paul a softball interview a few days ago? Well, it wasn't super hard. I think if you asked Peter himself, was that a hardball interview? Like, was that an interview that you would give to Dick Morris? I don't think it was. But, all right, you know, that is what it is. All right, let's see. What would I recommend? All right, what's my chess rating? Well, I would estimate that right now it's about 1,600, which means that I'm a pretty good amateur. I mean, strictly speaking, if you were to look me up in the USCF, it would only be 1405, but that's not accurate because that's from over 10 years ago. And at the time of that rating, I had won like 10 games in a row. Like, I was way underrated. So I would say I'm about 1,600, which is really as far as to get better than that. And I just enjoy playing. And this year I'm going to have a rematch with Walter Block at Mises University, and then we'll see who is really most awesome. Well, okay, what do I think of Noam Chomsky? Well, I think he says some courageous things about foreign policy, but I think he's dead wrong about good old Ron Paul. Who's my most influential Austrian? Well, it's a tie between Rothbard for me. What are the major points of disagreement between classical liberals and Austrian-styled libertarianism? Well, oh, wait, okay, is she here?
No.
Okay, but you're coming on to say, hey, this is going way, way over?
I feel bad.
You feel bad. All right, let me close off, because I don't even notice the time going by, and I really should get going.
You're disappearing.
And I am disappearing because it's so dark out here. This just goes to show how long I've been with you guys. I'll just say, I don't know, you'd have to give me a specific example, like maybe John Stossel versus Lou Rockwell or something like that. I don't know. Ask me that next time that I'm on, and I'll think it through. And I'm more of a Pepsi person, and my wife is a Coke person. My wife is one of these people when you're in a restaurant and she'll say, which she hardly ever drinks Coke anymore, like once in like 3 months. But if she says, I'll have a Coke, and they say, Pepsi, okay, my wife is one of those people who says, no thanks, I'll just have water. So we have a difference of opinion. Okay, yeah, no, my hair's not moving on its own. It's the wind. I'm outside. David McCullough, he was too easy on Truman in his biography. Okay. All right, well, I think that's really all I can get to, everybody. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to more. Somebody commented on 1,400 rating. I wish I could see that comment again. But anyway, I appreciate you guys spending time. You know, I know you could be being with your family, and instead you're here with me. So I appreciate that. I hope you guys, again, will... I know this is annoying, but I'm going to type this in. Hope if you haven't yet, I hope you will check out sort of like the culmination of my life's work, libertyclassroom.com. The value of the membership there gets greater and greater all the time. But also, remember, I just go to that site and go to become an affiliate. Click on that. I am paying $30 for every person who clicks on your link and joins. So Amazon's referral program is like a piece of junk compared to this. $30 per person you refer. You'd be crazy not to do this. Please check that out. And that's that. So, all right, everybody. Thank you very much. Good night. Ian, always a pleasure doing this. And we'll see you in, I guess, maybe 2 weeks from now. I don't know. Well, July is a really crazy month. We might have to do like an ad hoc session on a different night. But we'll talk about that. All right, everybody. Good night. We'll see you.